So thank you everyone for joining. Please mute your microphones to help reduce the noise level, and please be mindful of the background noise. And then put your cameras properly when you're the speaker. I would ask all the different stakeholders to type all the details into the chat box, so that things would make it would be easier to move things forward. We will ask the country manager for Dell to quickly introduce the minister. I want to believe that Abimbola is here. Please, Abimbola, please kindly introduce the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we're glad and happy to have you here. Thank you for making out time.
Thank you, Margaret. I believe everybody can hear me.
Very well.
Great. Thanks for the honor to introduce the minister. Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy of Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, FCRIS, FBCS, FNCS, is the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy of Federal Republic of Nigeria. He holds a Bachelor of Technology and Masters in Computer Science, an MBA in Technology Management, and a doctorate in Computer Information System. He's a professor of cybersecurity. Prior to his appointment as a minister, he was the Director General, Chief Executive Officer of National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, which has a mandate of research and development in information technology. He is currently the Chief Digital Officer of the Federation, based on the National Policy for Virtual Engagement in Federal public institutions. He also serves as a chairman and member of several presidential and interministerial committees, and has received over 150 awards, including award of the Best Minister on multiple occasions. Professor Ibrahim also holds certificates in digital transformation from Harvard, digital strategy from both MIT and Institute of Management Development in Switzerland, strategic leadership from Oxford University, and the University of Cambridge certification in management. Professor Ibrahim lectured at the university for almost 2 decades, teaching ICT courses. Please welcome with me the Professor of Cybersecurity, Alhaji Ali Pantami.
So let me go through. The U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Her Excellency Mary Leonard, and also my colleague and sister, the Honorable Minister of ICT and Innovation of Rwanda, Her Excellency Paula Ingabire, the Paula of Africa, as I usually address her, the President of African Business Council, my brother, Mr. Dipo Faulkner, and also the representative of the National Security Advisor of Nigeria, Brigadier General Samat Akesode, and also the representative of the Minister of Justice, and also the head of International Government Partnership, other speakers and panelists here with us. Good afternoon to all of you, and may peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. However, it could be good morning in some places, and it also be good evening. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It depends on where you are. Firstly, I am highly honored to be invited to serve as the keynote speaker of the American Business Council Conference 2022. If I could recall vividly, I also served as a keynote speaker during the first event organized by the American Business Council on 21st August 2021. However, I feel more excited with this event because, as we all know, that October of each and every year has been designated to be the month of cybersecurity awareness. So coincidentally, we are now presenting the conference in October, which has been designated as the month for us to create more awareness when it comes to cybersecurity. So that coincidence between the conference organized by the American Business Council on one hand, and also taking place in October, the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, makes the event very dear to me. Furthermore, as we all know, that people going online, the total number of people going virtual is increasing by the day. For example, the world population has been predicted to reach 80 billion people by next month, that is November 2022. Most probably by mid of November 2022, the world population will hit 80 billion people. As it is today, the world population is approximately 7.95 billion people, or thereabout. It is because of this that the total number of people going online is also increasing. According to a research conducted by the International Telecommunication Union, that from the inception of a COVID-19 pandemic, that is in early 2020, when it started dominating the world, to the end of to most probably towards the end of 2022, the total number of people that got connected within this period of time, which is roughly less than 2 years, the total number of people got connected within this period only is closely estimated to be 800 million people. This is new users, new internet users. This is the total number of new internet users that got connected within a period of approximately 2 years. So by implication, if you look at 800 million new users, approximately is almost the 10% of the world population. So this is the total number of people got connected within only the period of a pandemic. Furthermore, if you look at also the total number of people online today is around 5.2 billion people. Approximately, one may wish to say around 64 to 65% of the whole world population. It is only around 35 to 36% of the world population that is not connected today. So this is to show to us that people getting connected, the total number is increasing by the day. In addition, also, if you also look at the advancement of technology, particularly the pace of innovation, broadband penetration, interconnected devices through Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics, and many more, you will discover that people are well connected, and that is what brings about the dimension of cybersecurity. Because of that interconnected device, people going online to conduct their businesses, among many others, this increases the cybercrime percentage globally and the total number of attacks taking place globally. Why? Because cyber criminals leverage on our connectivity in order to commit their crime. It is because of this, it becomes necessary to discuss cybersecurity from time to time. Particularly, digital transformation is real and is taking place in so many places in the world. Particularly in Nigeria, a lot has been achieved when it comes to national policies, development and implementation, broadband penetration, automation of government processes, government digital services, among others. It is because of this and many more reasons that there is need for us to always discuss cyber security. Cyber security, as we all know, is just a component of digital transformation. Because if you have digital transformation or digital economy ecosystem in place, part of that ecosystem is what brings about cyber security in order to ensure that this digitalization is well secured. And that is why it is one of the challenges of connectivity today. When you get connected, then you are exposed. If care is not taken, then definitely your confidentiality, privacy, among others, are going to be compromised. In order to show to us the challenge of cybercrime in the world, there is a research conducted by HP in which the chief technology of HP, Mr. Dana, was saying that in the world, after every 4.2 seconds, a new malware is released globally. By implication, in each and every minute, you will discover a minimum of 6 malware applications are released globally. This is only within 1 minute. So if you compute per hour, then per day, you will discover that the challenge is really worrisome, because each minute, approximately, you will discover more than 6 malware applications are released. And the world is being bombarded by all these in order to at least compromise our virtual world, in order to compromise our activities online. One key point, which is very important for us to take note, that cyber criminals do not attack just your computer system, but rather they attack you in person through your computer system. The more people discover you are known, and the more people know that you have a lot to lose by being attacked, then the probability of attacking you is higher. So because of the cyber criminals, do not attack your system, but rather they attack you through your system. The theme of this year's conference, as organized by the American Business Council 2022, is strengthening the Nigeria cybersecurity ecosystem and protecting today's hybrid workplace. This theme has at least 2 important components. The first component is the protection of Nigeria's cybersecurity ecosystem. And the second one is protecting. The first one is strengthening Nigeria's cybersecurity ecosystem, how to strengthen it, while the second one is how to protect today's hybrid workplace. The 2 themes, or sub-themes, are very apt and very relevant. They are in alignment with what the federal government of Nigeria has been doing in order to ensure that we protect our cyberspace. When it comes to strengthening Nigeria's cybersecurity ecosystem, a lot has been achieved under the administration of our principal, President Muhammadu Buhari, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And this achievement, you will discover that these achievements have reflected in the Global Cybersecurity Index. For example, according to the ITU, in 2018, Nigeria ranked 57 out of 175 countries in the world when it comes to Global Cybersecurity Index, 57 out of 175 countries. In 2020, in order to show that our achievements and our initiatives are yielding a positive result, 2 years later, by 2020, our ranking went higher. Nigeria became 47 out of 194 countries. If you look at, we went 10 steps higher, but the total number of countries in the survey increased significantly. In the first one is 57 out of 175. Then 2 years later, 47 out of 194. This is to show that the initiative of strengthening our ecosystem has been yielding a positive result. It is because of this that I personally wrote a book, an academic book entitled Cybersecurity Initiatives for Stewarding a Country. This is a book I have written, and the foreword has also been written by the president of International Federation of Information Processing, Professor Mike Hinchy from Ireland. So this book is to document our initiatives in Nigeria, starting from the time I was in NIDA as the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency to the time that I became a minister. In NIDA as the Chief Information Technology Officer of the country before becoming a minister, and statutorily based on the national policy on virtual engagements in the federal public institution in Nigeria, Minister in charge of communications and digital economy is statutorily the Chief Digital Officer of the Federation. So we came up with so many initiatives, and that led me to writing a book. And in that book, I came up with actually 13-step model to show to us how a country can be secured. And I will just mention the stages superficially, and that explanation will guide us to know what we have done. All the stages mentioned, more than 90% of them have been implemented or they are being implemented. Firstly, that is the development of the national digitalization policy or national digital economy policy. This is the most important document because cybersecurity is only an aspect of the digital economy. So we have developed our national digital economy policy and strategy for a digital Nigeria. The second step is establishment, conducting a research to identify the baseline of your digitalization in your country, and also the baseline of cybercrime in your country. We have conducted a research to understand our baseline in Nigeria after the development of the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy for a Digital Nigeria in 2019. Stage number 3 is the development of National Cybersecurity Policy. This one has been developed through the coordination of the Office of the National Security Advisor, in which the Ministry, NCC, NITDA, Galaxy Backbone Limited, NIMSI, among others, participated in the development. So it is important always to have national cybersecurity policy or national cybersecurity law in place. Then number 4, which is also very important, is the establishment of National Cybersecurity Center. As it is now today, we don't have National Cybersecurity Center. However, the process is in the pipeline, and we have so many national cybersecurity initiatives. Firstly, we have many initiatives in the Office of the National Security Advisor. Secondly, in the financial system, in the finance sector, the financial sector, we also have under Central Bank of Nigeria. In the telecommunications sector, we have under Nigerian Communications Commission, which is also under my supervision. In the IT sector, we have initiatives under National Information Technology Development Agency. Most of these initiatives, you will discover that they work together, they support each other, and they partner together. For example, while in NIDA, I initiated the process of the deployment of a world-class computer emergency response and readiness team. When I became a minister, I directed the Nigerian Communications Commission through a policy to establish computer security incidents response team. These two teams are very effective, and both of them are under our supervision. Furthermore, there is also the need of building the skills of citizens. And this one is important to ensure that you create awareness, because the best way to get protected online is to make sure that people are educated about the dangers of being online and the stages to be taken to ensure that they are protected. This is indeed very important, and we are doing that. We always issue advisory note. A week can hardly pass without getting an advisory note, either from NCC or from NITDA. And I always supervise that any discovery we get, any potential attack, we intercept, we issue an advisory note to both public and private institutions, including individuals, so that they will get protected online. And furthermore, also part of the initiatives is the mandatory use of national identification number. When I became a minister in 2019, in 2020 by October, Mr. President has directed me to supervise the National Identity Management Commission. At that time, NIMSI was established in 2007, and I assumed the supervision in October 2020. 13 years of existence. The entire database I inherited was less than 40 million enrollments in 13 years. But from October 2020 to date, which is approximately now 2 years, we increased that database to 90 million enrollments. 90 million from less than 40. And this is only within 2 years, notwithstanding the challenges we have funding among many others. So we have increased the enrollment significantly. That is also key to cybersecurity, to ensure each and every citizen and legal resident has his own unique national identification number that is attached to him. That is very important, and this is what is being implemented even in the developed world. Like in the UK, they have national insurance number. In the US, they have social security number. Even in the developing countries, you will discover they have their initiatives. In India, they have Aadhaar number. In Pakistan, they have Nadra. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they have their Ikama number. So this is what you will discover. So it is very important. And in Nigeria, we are so passionate about that. And we are doing all the best we can to ensure that at least we get a 99% of our citizens and legal residents enrolled. That is a minimum of 99%. However, our target is to be 100%. I didn't say 100 because many people are coming by the day. Many people are being born by the day, and some are leaving the world, are departing the world. So because of this, there is always a 1% of that gap that could hardly be breached because of the people that are coming into the world every day and people leaving the world every day. So that is why we try to get our database to be at least 99% right. And now we are on track based on the initiatives we have initiated. And also there is need for building cybersecurity army. What I mean by cybersecurity army is to train some citizens to have world-class training when it comes to cybersecurity certification, where they will protect your cyberspace. This one is very important, like through penetrating testing, ethical hacking, among many other initiatives that are important. We have so many initiatives in that direction. We are training our citizens day in, day out on cybersecurity to acquire the skills, the certification. Some of them are using online platforms like Try Hack Me, like among others, or Hack the Box. So there are many applications, and we have so many citizens that are encouraged to go online. Some of them will even pay for their registration where necessary, so that we will ensure that our cyberspace is protected. When it comes to today's hybrid workplace, this is also very important in Nigeria because of COVID-19 pandemic, we have been compelled to formalize and institutionalize virtual engagements. Prior to COVID, virtual engagements were not formal in Nigeria. Because of COVID-19, I introduced virtual Federal Executive Council in Nigeria. I also introduced a virtual National Economic Council. We have also introduced virtual National Security Council. All these meetings, we initiated them at the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. And because of this, we went further to develop a policy that will institutionalize and formalize these engagements. In collaboration with the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, we developed the national policy for virtual engagements in the federal public institution. Even now, with the relaxation of COVID-19, still, we are conducting virtual engagements. Even yesterday, I was physically at the Federal Executive Council meeting in the presidency, but more than 50% of the ministers joined the meeting virtually from their offices, some even outside the country. This is to show to us that our situation today, when it comes to today's hybrid, is being implemented even at the highest level of government, the Federal Executive Council being chaired by His Excellency, Mr. President. So we have so many initiatives also to ensure the sustainability, the maintenance, and the security of these virtual engagements we organize. And that is why we are glad that so far we have spent over 2 years conducting virtual engagements, there wasn't any security compromise with regards to Federal Executive Council meetings. And this is indeed very commendable because we have a team in place from start to finish to ensure that our engagement is very secured and also very effective and efficient. The whole ecosystem, either cybersecurity ecosystem or digital economy ecosystem, we strongly believe that no one can do it alone. And I'm glad that in the theme you say cybersecurity ecosystem. Today, cybersecurity is an ecosystem like the digital economy ecosystem, even though it is a subset of the digital economy. We agree that we have so many members of that ecosystem being led by the Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. In the digital economy, when it comes to the cybersecurity ecosystem, we have the ministry, the parastatals under the ministry, we have Office of the National Security Advisor, academia, private sector, particularly the major industry players that are online. So we have so many members of that ecosystem. We always work together in the development of policy or the implementation of policy because we believe nobody can do it alone. We must work together to ensure that our cyberspace is protected. There are challenges. A lot has been achieved in Nigeria. There are challenges that are inevitable. Challenges, we always consider them as a motivation to do more. And that is why whenever we are challenged, we try to increase our performance. And this is what we have been doing. Once again, I commend the effort of our American Business Council for organizing this, particularly as part of it, there is hackathon. That hackathon is also really encouraging. And I do hope that at the end of today's session, the winners are going to be announced. And I congratulate all of them in advance. And I do hope that whatever they come up of any startup or initiative is going to be supported so that we will be able to deploy and make use of it in the future time. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Today has been very interesting in terms of the, can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Just to be sure, yes, because this has been a very interesting day. First of all, we want to apologize to the Honorable Minister and again to every stakeholder here. It's been one of those very convoluted, but it tells us that yes, technology works, but again, there's still quite a lot we need to learn and to understand, and that is why again we're talking about all the capacity and all the great work that the Honorable Minister has shared, that the ministry has been doing to accelerate and the progressions that have been made to get this to move forward. At this point, because again, here I am as an improvised MC, which was not the initial plan. We're going to be going right into the Honorable Minister's panel session, and so we're just to be sure that Dr. Ojam, the moderator, are you ready?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion on building a resilient cybersecurity ecosystem in Nigeria. Here we have well-respected experts in government and industry that will discuss this very, very important topic. And so in no particular order, let me introduce the panelists. We've heard from the first panelist, the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami. The second person, I hope she's online, is the Honorable Minister of ICT and Innovation of Rwanda, Her Excellency Paula Inagibire.
She is with us.
Okay, we also have Matthew Klein, the Head International Government Partnerships, Coursera. We have Major General Samad Akesode, who is from the Office of National Security Advisor. And finally, to my friend and brother, Mr. George Maria Tizedwa, from the Ministry of Justice in Nigeria. So I am Honorable Dr. Chukwuemeka Ujam. I'm moderating this session. But before we go into questions, let me, just offer a few short words. I listened to the Honorable Minister in the opening remarks, but I will say resilience in a system implies the ability to obviously withstand and recover quickly. And in the cybersecurity context, Nigeria faces great threats daily and is certainly not immune to all these attacks. Data breaches are a common phenomenon. And despite efforts by government and organizations, it seems that we're fraught with immense difficulty. Reports have it that Nigeria has attained the unenviable position of 16th in the world ranking of countries that are faced with cybersecurity threats. And this is, of course, indeed worrisome. One of the results of COVID is the increase in organizations adopting a hybrid work model, and that, of course, encourages people to work remotely. That poses new and greater challenges to security. So are organizations equipped to handle the unforeseen? What happens in the unfortunate event of a breach? These are a few contextual questions that come to mind. And please, attendees, as we progress, you can feel free to use the question and answer tab to send in your questions. So let me start with the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Pantami. As the Minister in charge of the digital economy, there's the triple helix model. And this model emphasizes the importance of collaboration between government, academia, and the industry. So, Honorable Minister, do you see parallels that can be drawn? And is this model relevant in Nigeria's cybersecurity context and the efforts that you allude to?
Triple helix model, we are not only mentioning it, we are currently implementing it in Nigeria, particularly within the digital economy ecosystem. I recently wrote another book, which could be out any moment in October. The book has been entitled as Skills rather than just degrees. In that book, I dedicated a significant part of it to discuss the necessity of the implementation of triple helix model. Government to look into the policy, providing the enabling environment that is required, regulating the sector effectively, while academia conducting research and development, while industry, on the other hand, will make sure the success of the sector when it comes to the implementation of the research being conducted. So in Nigeria today is not only a proposal, we had been implementing triple helix model since 2019, December to date. That is why in whatever we do, you will discover that we bring government, academia, and industry to work together. For example, recently, we were in Bucharest, Romania, for ITU Plenipotentiary Conference. Even as part of the delegation, you will clearly see the implementation of triple helix model. I led a delegation including government, academia. As I'm currently speaking now, we have a vice chancellor as part of my team who is there in Geneva partaking in technical session. This is representing the academia, and the same with industry. We have many industry players that are currently there. Next week, Nigeria will be part of Gulf Information Technology Exhibition. Part of the team, there is a good representation of government, academia, at least 2 vice chancellors are part of the team that I'm going to lead. And also there are many industry players. So whatever we do, from policy formulation, policy discussion, stakeholder engagement, policy implementation, we always make sure that triple helix model is implemented. And this is from December 2019 to date. And this is one of the reasons why the ecosystem has been very successful. We don't believe in monopoly of wisdom and knowledge. What we believe in coming together to join our hands together and be successful. As part of government, when it comes to digital economy, the ministry and all the parastatals being supervised. Academia, we have universities and other research institutions. As part of also government, we have regulatory bodies, industry players, we have so many companies, either indigenous or multinationals operating in Nigeria. So whatever we do, you will discover they are part of it. If you look at the Presidential Council on Digital Economy that has recently been inaugurated by His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari, you will discover the implementation of triple helix model. There are 6 governors inside, there are 6 ministers, and I'm chairing the council. And also there are 2 vice chancellors representing the academia. And also there are industry players there. It is because of the triple helix model as part of our digital economy policy and strategy that I left my comfort zone and I went to academia. As I'm talking to you today, I'm still a lecturer in university. I teach students, and when it comes to teaching, I don't teach MSc or PhD. In order to give background, I begin by teaching 100 level and 200 level students. I currently lecture in university, and I supervise PhD candidates in the area of cybersecurity. As a minister, I go to university and teach. While I was DG in NIDA, I was also working with National Open University. And I led a team in NIDA that even developed the entire curriculum of National Open University in Nigeria. And as a minister, I am also teaching, I am supervising projects. And not only in one university, there are other universities that are requesting my service even abroad. So
Thank you,
triple helix model is being implemented effectively.
You're clearly very busy. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Let me just pose a question to your counterpart in Rwanda. Your Excellency Paula, according to a 2019 Women in Cybersecurity report by the International Information System Security Certification Consortium, women make up to 24% of cybersecurity professionals. While this, of course, over doubles the 11% that was quoted in 2017, it still shows that there's still a need to encourage more women to become cybersecurity professionals. So as the woman that is leading digital transformation efforts in Rwanda, you're well aware of the capacity of women to make a big difference in information and communication technology. So what's your approach to getting more women to become part of the tech ecosystem?
Thank you very much, moderator. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yep.
Maybe a signal for that, great. So let me probably start off by thanking the organizers and the American Business Council, as well as my colleague Minister Issa for the invitation to join this session and share about Rwanda, but also more broadly, even some of the efforts that we can undertake as the broader African family. But very quickly, to respond to your question, I think the gap and the statistics that you just shared are very glaring, and we're talking about a shortage of perhaps 3.5 million workers in the global cybersecurity workforce, where even today, as you say, if we have only 24% of female represented in that workforce, yet on the other hand, when you look at the global demographics, women make up 51% of the global population. So where has it gone wrong? And I think what we should be discussing today is what can we do differently? What could be those barriers to having more women and girls joining not just STEM fields, but also really choosing cybersecurity as a career choice, and really looking at what is the root cause of having fewer women in that space. What we also see, even without really zooming in just on cybersecurity as a profession, is that the global tech industry is generally male dominated, and tackling this gender gap imbalance requires unconventional ways. And what is it that we're doing, basically, just to even share that, is one of the unconventional ways is to know that if we have to tackle this problem by looking at the way we've had women go through the formal education to get to a point that they get employed within the workforce, then it's probably going to take us 100 of years before we can start to see a good balance of more women that are within the cybersecurity workforce. But we are also presented with opportunities of reskilling and upskilling that do not require that one goes through a university degree or a secondary school education to be able to gain a particular skill set. And so even looking at the current workforce that we have today, what are those opportunities to reskill and upskill the different women in these professionals that they can actually then we can have more representation within this workforce. Very particularly for Rwanda, what we're also doing is starting at a very early age. Today, most of the students, if you look back, many students, girls or boys, when they start to choose STEM as a choice, is that either they're excelling in math and physics, and they have and that's the ability to excel in those two fields, then in one way or the other gives them a pathway within the STEM career. So what we've done is targeting students that are between age 13 and 15 that are doing very well in math and physics, and offering them a career choice that is within STEM, but with an emphasis also on cybersecurity. So in bringing them, we've created what we've called the Coding Academy, and we've been very intentional about making sure there's a 50-50 split in terms of gender. So even in terms of enrollment, it's really ensuring that we have 50% are girls and 50% are boys. And then we are really focusing on how do we groom them through the 3-year program that allows them to eventually get into the workforce. So that is really more on the education level. When it comes to the workforce, it's also really thinking about what are some of those retention measures that we need to put in place. I was reading a report really trying to understand what are some of those challenges. And when you look at the cybersecurity profession, and many of you will relate with it, is that many of these professions are working, 24/7. Yes, in certain cases you have certain offices or organizations that will create a rotation. So how do we create a rotation that makes it possible? Because most of these women are either, mothers, they're taking care of very young families. And so sometimes these hours may not work for them. So how do we create a space that allows them to still contribute and still play these other roles that they have in the society, which may be different from a father who can afford to perhaps, take a night shift, where you wouldn't have a woman taking a night shift if she has a 2-month-old baby or a 4-month-old baby. And so I think it's really being very deliberate about those, workplace retention policies that make it possible to make this profession very exciting for women and girls.
Thank you. It's quite refreshing to hear that. From what you said, you're obviously making a deliberate attempt to catch them young, and that in itself is a good policy direction. But now that we're on the topic of education, let me just go on to another panelist, and I'll come back to you. So if I could go on to Matthew Klin, who is the head of international government partnerships at Coursera. Matthew, Coursera is listed as one of the most popular platforms for online education, with over 100 million online learners. Online learning platforms such as yours have become a medium of choice for enhancing digital skills. So as Coursera's head of international government partnerships, can you share some key approaches for accelerating the massive adoption of online learning platforms in developing countries?
Of course, and happy to. And first, thank you for having me. Nigeria is close to my heart. I used to spend a lot of time in Abuja and in Niger and Nasarawa states in a past life. And it's also very excited to be here as we're partnering with NITA to support them in their goal to upskill 1 million citizens, starting with a program to reach 8,000 citizens per year. As background, as you mentioned, Coursera serves 100 million learners all over the world. And we work with over 100 governments around the world with workforce development, upskilling programs. And the key piece and the key kind of secret sauce that we work with is really the best quality content that we can find from anywhere in the world. And so, for example, when it comes to cybersecurity content, we have best-in-class content from IBM and from Google and from Microsoft and ISC and Akamai and Palo Alto Networks, with many more different top providers even coming every day. Some of the approaches that we've seen to be really, really effective, and what one country I would point to Costa Rica as really being a country to look at in this area, is a focus on the jobs. So the programs that we see the most successful around the world are the ones that actually are able to bring the private sector to the table. Similar to the minister's comment of how do we actually build this collaboration between government and industry. So what we've seen is the countries that are able to actually get those companies that are hiring and have them directly be providing feedback of the skills that they're looking to hire from, inputting into these programs, and then agreeing to interview the graduates of these programs to be incredibly successful, because you're able to actually build that connection and make sure the training is particularly right on the areas that are most critical for the private sector. A few of the other ones that we seem to be really, really effective as governments think through these large-scale online learning programs are thinking about the learner journey. So how are learners finding out about the program? How are they being directed? So some countries and states are actually guiding learners and actually helping them think through the discovery process of what career do they want to take. And so a learner needs to actually understand and care about online learning. They need to believe that the career that they're taking, the work that they're doing is going to result in a job at the end of the day. And so the programs that actually connect with those learners early and guide them towards careers that they are interested in, well, those are really effective. And then finally, there are a few others. So there are countries that are doing a great job connecting across ministries. So a lot will have programs led by ICT ministries, but kind of as mentioning in the ecosystem in Nigeria, often there are other entities that are really important to collaborate with. And we see some countries like Guyana and Kazakhstan that are doing really interesting work collaborating across ministries of ICT, ministries of education, in some oil-rich countries, even ministries of natural resources that have the incentive to actually make sure that certain entry-level citizens are able to get into entry-level jobs, entry-level careers that are important for the country. So those are just a few, and happy to speak more.
Sure, thank you, Matthew. Yeah, you mentioned Costa Rica, so I guess that's one direction we'll look at to see what can be adopted for or in the Nigerian context. But while we were online, there was a question which was asked, and in response from both ministers and you, I mean, so the question was who realistically, so that was a question from Edward Wadinobi. He says, who realistically should be the key driver stroke implementer of the cybersecurity effort, government or private enterprise or both? And I think the direct answer really is both. You can't leave it to just one sector. But talking about a sector, let me just go on to, and because of time, so I'll make sure that everyone has a pitch in on the panel. Let me go on to Major General Samad of the Office of the National Security Advisor. Major General Samad, please, as part of the framework to implement policy and strategy, we hear that the federal government is looking at input has been made by international partners and look the progress that has been made on the act. This is to Major General.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Emeka. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this session, and I'm very, very happy to be part of this event. I equally want to thank the organizers of the event, and I must say that the theme of the event, which is building a resilient cybersecurity ecosystem in Nigeria, is very, very, very good. Permit me to also just acknowledge the presence of my minister here, Professor Isa Ali Pantami, and equally commend continuously his laudable initiatives in this cybersecurity ecosystem. And now to your question. The Office of the National Security Advisor provides for the strategic guidance for cybersecurity activities in the country. And recently, maybe 2021, I must say, the Nigerian cybersecurity policy and strategy document was reviewed and launched by Mr. President. And the amendment of the Cybercrime Act is one of the key initiatives for implementation in this strategy. I must tell you that there has been significant progress in the amendment of the Cybercrimes Act. And like you rightly put it, we've been able to collect inputs from our international partners, local institutions, our MDA subject matter experts, and quite a number of inputs, which we even got from outside the ecosystem. We have compiled these inputs and put together in terms of reference. A committee also to look at the amendment has also been established, after which we are looking at maybe a period of about 6 weeks to do this amendment. The terms of references have been drawn up. And we also have the approval of the Cybercrime Advisory Council for the amendment to go on. So I think I'll want to stop here for now, and then hand over the mic to you, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Major General. The Federal Ministry of Justice has your ministry working with other security advisor to combat cyber. You are proposing, and what's the state from your ministry?
Okay, Emeka, I couldn't make out some of your this thing, but I got the parts I heard about it's what the Ministry of Justice, how it's working with the other stakeholders, particularly with respect to combating cybercrime. Straight off, of course, statutorily, the Cybercrimes Act vested responsibility for strengthening the legal framework, both for international cooperation and for effective prosecution on the Honorable the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. Now, in that regard, there is, of course, and like mentioned, the Office of the National Security Advisor is chair of the Cybercrime Advisory Council, but also, so the two offices and other stakeholders have been working together, particularly in the areas of capacity building. That has been done across the board, because one of the key things is, like some people have mentioned, is workforce development. So if you want to build a resilient cybersecurity ecosystem, you must build capacity. You must train people. But also, you must realize that when you train people, those systems fail. And when those systems fail, that is when cybercrime kicks in to ensure that you're able to use the instrumentality of law enforcement to do attribution, to track down who has committed what crime, who has retrieved the evidence, to ensure that you hold people accountable, right? So a strong law enforcement response to cybercrime reinforces cybersecurity. Now, in this regard, one of the key things that the ministry has done and that ought to be highlighted is that the ministry has also seen through the entrance of Nigeria into the International Committee of Nations that are taking the fight against cybercrime seriously. That is by acceding to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. That is the sole instrument presently that deals on the international level with the subject of cybercrime. And Nigeria has about 67 member states joining. Another thing that is of importance is that there are two processes that are also going on, and I'm highlighting these processes because they bring us to the very key and important aspect of international cooperation. Because in everything that we're doing, whether cybersecurity, capacity building, fighting cybercrime, one key aspect of it is international cooperation. And in that regard, again, constitutionally, the Attorney General is the central authority for the country. And to that extent, it is very key that as we take the steps domestically, we must also create that synergy to ensure that we get the best outcomes from our engagement on the international scene. So international cooperation plays a very key role. And it is to this extent that Nigeria is also actively involved in both the UN open-ended working group on cybersecurity, as well as the UN ad hoc committee that is working to elaborate a new convention on cybercrime. Well, I must say that for the UN Ad Hoc Committee, I do have the privilege of serving as one of the vice chairs of the bureau of that ad hoc committee. And Nigeria's engagement goes a long way in putting forward our views, our challenges, as well as our perspectives when it comes to the fight against cybercrime. So the key thing remains working to create synergy domestically and taking advantage of the best resources and opportunities that exist to ensure that we are able to pursue, apprehend, prosecute, and punish anyone that is engaged in cybercrime in Nigeria and also amongst our international partners.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
The question is, how important do you think it is to national security, national and hashtag 39? Now, this is now his putting his question. But how important is it to the nation, to a nation, for issues around digital economy, especially when it has to do with women in policy making? I'm really trying to decode his question, what he said on the chat.
Okay.
At this point.
We'll take a stab at that. Well, right. I must say, it's not just important, but it's urgent. And then perhaps maybe we should reframe the conversation on what are some of the practical examples or things that we can do to be more inclusive and diverse, not just in policy making, but also at the implementation level within corporates as well as startups. Because I think earlier when the Minister of Nigeria talked about the triple helix model, we're looking at both governments, corporates, the academia, a wide range of stakeholders. And so I think the importance cannot just be left at the policy level, but rather looking at the entire stakeholder continuum and figuring out how do we ensure that there's this inclusivity and diversity in the different decision-making roles. Now, for policymaking, obviously, for any country in policymaking, roles, it's very important because you are charting the way forward in terms of where is the country going, what are the ambitions of the digital economy agenda that a country may have, but also how do we make sure that these ambitions and these plans and strategies are very reflective of a diverse group of the population, of the different demographics, are reflective of the inclusion, which has to be at the heart of the digital economy agenda. And so really looking at all those things. Now for Rwanda, as a particular case, I think for us, when it comes to policy making, even just looking at the composition of our cabinet, where we have 51% of women in the cabinet and more than 62% in parliament. But we don't just stop at the government or the policy side of the equation. It's also how we're getting into the private sector to have the gender seal, whether it's the financial institutions, whether it's the tech companies and startups. How are we seeing more and more women within decision-making roles in the corporate world, in the startup world? Because at the end of the day, it's one thing to have policies and strategies. It's also the people that get to implement and making sure that they're very inclusive in some of the decisions that they are taking while implementing some of these programs. And more so even in the digital economy, I think for most of you who we've had an opportunity to discuss this particular topic, we've seen very relevant examples of, I think, the car seat belt, where, if you don't have a diverse team in building certain products, then more or less you're really going to be biased towards, a particular agenda. And so even in policies, you want to make sure that they're inclusive enough to really accompany the different demographics, but also to make sure that they're not biased to just one segment of the population. So I would say, let's not just ask whether it's important, but practically what are the things that we can do differently to make sure that we're empowering more women to be part of the decision making, to be part of creating solutions, of building products in this digital economy, so that everyone can be reached and everyone can really comfortable. And more so when we talk about cybersecurity, there's going to be nuances around, the scale of cyber threats that are happening, how the kind of people that are being targeted, and how do you create response measures that are, are also reflective of gender as well, because the nature of cyber threats is varying in many ways. And so even for this particular topic of cybersecurity, and really thinking about how we can have more and more women and girls, not just making decisions, but also building response measures and response mechanisms is very important as a system. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you, at least for now. At least for now.
Before the cybersecurity guys come get us, I need to close this session because I know that Honourable Minister Professor Pantami, that you have some other engagement and you will need to announce winners. So thank you very much, everybody on the panel. I have loads of questions more. I'll type them in the general Q&A, and if you can pick them, fine. But thank you very much for your time and the responses to this very, very important topic. Thank you very much. Over to you, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And this has been a very, very interesting day, and challenging, but very interesting. We're very grateful to the Honorable Minister, the two Honorable Ministers. First of all, very, I'm trying to get the best word to describe, Professor Issa Pantami. He's been extremely supportive of this project, and cybersecurity has been a critical conversation, not just in Nigeria, but also in the continent. And also our dear minister from Rwanda, our guest speaker, thank you so much, and every other person on the panel. At this point, we'll be calling on the Honorable Minister because part of the things we did on the sideline of this, going with the spirit of last year, is to have a hackathon. And we had a hackathon, and the Honorable Minister has been very, as told us, he's able to announce the names of the winners of the hackathon. So over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, really, for inviting me and giving me the privilege to announce the winners. And once again, I will also recognize my sister, the Minister of ICT and Innovation from Rwanda, Paula Ingabire, the Paula of Africa, as I usually address her. I think we have 3 winners here. And I can start, I think, with the third group, the Black Bulls. And I think there are 5 people in the team. Oyekule Abdurrahman, Precious Olives, Johnson Daniel, Anigoro Inirogene, Karibe Victor. The Black Bulls are the 3rd position among the winners. And they are invited, at least virtually, to come forward and receive their award from the American Business Council and their partners. Then we move to the 2nd position, Akatsuki, and there are 4 members in this team: Adisa Tohib Kayode, Adisa Tohib Kayode, Danjuma Muhammad, Adebayo Shegun, Fatima Aminu. 4 of them are the members of the 2nd group that emerges as the 2nd base in the competition. Then we move to the winner. That is the first position among the three winners. All of them are winners. That is a Redad.ng Junior. We have 6 members in this category or in this group: Abdul Jalal Saminu, Chuks Clinton, Abdul Malik Nafiu, Abdul Hakim Onipede, Ikechukwu Moses, Akintunde Adeyoye. 6 of them are the first position. So I want to use the opportunity on behalf of the American Business Council to congratulate all of them. And as far as I'm concerned, all those who participated in the challenge are winners, not only the ones I had mentioned, because it is indeed encouraging to participate even in the challenge. For those that have not been among the 3 groups mentioned here, ordinarily people will call them losers. As far as I'm concerned, they are not losers. They are also winners because of the participation. There are billions of people out there in Africa that cannot even be able to participate. And based on my philosophical approach to issues, losing is not an opposite of success or winning, but it's just a step towards winning or being successful. So you have to try before you reach where you intend to. And I do hope that next time in the same challenge or competition or anywhere, they will be able to emerge among the formal winners. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and we appreciate the time you have spent with us today. I know it's been a bit of a long ride today getting things done, but we're happy that we have moved to this level. And yeah, we also know your schedule is really very busy, and then you want to go attend other meetings. And we appreciate the time you have spent with us here, and we also appreciate the time that the Honorable Minister for ICT and Innovation has also spent with us today. For Rwanda has spent with us today. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
At this point, I would call on the just before we move to the second part of the event, would call on the representative of the U.S. mission, David, to come share his perspective, to share the notes that we're not able to hear at the beginning of the event. So David, if you can hear us, kindly unmute and put your video on, or please can we get his video on? And over to you, David.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect, perfect.
Thank you. Honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be with you virtually today. I'm David Russell. I'm the commercial attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria. Due to the delays in the schedule, the ambassador was unable to stay on the line, so I will be representing her today. Whether or not I am ably representing her is for you to decide. So she had some remarks prepared. She wanted to start by thanking you, the American Business Council, for organizing this conference. The timing is perfect for this event because October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the United States. Digital technologies have revolutionized every aspect of our lives, how we do business, how we pay for things, and how we communicate, including conferences such as this. The sector is evolving and expanding at an exponential rate, reshaping our lives, fueling economic growth, especially here in Nigeria. But as this sector evolves and expands, so do the activities of cyber criminals and other malicious actors. Ransomware, identity theft, data breaches, and online scams have become increasingly sophisticated. Large-scale hacks and data breaches are daily news events. Nearly half of American adults have had their identity stolen or personal identity stolen by cyber criminals, and 1 in 3 US homes has a computer that is infected with malicious software. The United States understands that cybersecurity is an important component of national security and economic policy. Cybersecurity considerations must be embedded in our laws and policies, and They must be the habits of our everyday citizens. As more and more lives, businesses, and critical infrastructure move online, the cybersecurity related stakes grow higher and higher. According to the World Bank, the digital economy is equivalent to 15.5% of global GDP. In 2021, this is approximately $14.5 trillion. The digital economy, or the ICT sector, is the leading driver of growth here in Nigeria, which is the largest economy in Africa. With its young and entrepreneurial population, Nigeria is well poised to become the market leader in e-commerce and other digital sectors. But that requires trust in online transactions, secure infrastructure, and legal protections for businesses, consumers, and agencies. When citizens, consumers, and government fall victim to cybercrime, there is a resulting lack of trust, but also a threat to economic growth and diversification that we know Nigeria desperately wants and needs. We applaud the steps that Nigeria has taken to promote cybersecurity by, for example, publishing the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy and establishing the Computer Emergency Response Team. We commend Nigeria for its 2019 Data Protection Regulation, Cybercrime Advisory Council, and its recent accession to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. I want to also thank the government of Nigeria for joining our counter-ransomware initiative at the White House in October of last year. We are pleased with Nigeria's participation in a range of cyber-related trainings and workshops conducted or sponsored by the United States, and value our continued collaboration in not only pursuing international cybercrime actors, but also with the follow-up work necessary to make victims of cybercrime whole. We also must hold criminals and countries responsible for any malicious cyber activity that they perpetrate. I want to take a moment to talk about 5G. Trust in 5G equipment and software is essential when it comes to this technology and infrastructure rollout. Vigilance is needed to ensure that the new infrastructure does not introduce risks that threaten national security, privacy, or human rights. Allowing untrusted communication suppliers to participate in or control any part of our 5G network undermines that goal. We also need to make sure that we do all we can to make sure this technology is accessible to as many Nigerians as possible. In this context, the industry-led global movement towards open interoperable approaches known as Open Radio Access Networks, or Open RAN, presents an alternative to closed proprietary 5G infrastructure packages, thereby lowering costs and improving security. Open RAN firms frequently assemble equipment locally and rely on local labor forces for installation and management of that equipment. This provides an opportunity not only for Nigeria to boost its local content in digital technology space, but also for trusted, high-quality American vendors to support our Nigerian partners in the pursuit of this exciting upgrade. As Nigeria rolls out 5G infrastructure and services, the United States mission and American companies look forward to working closely with Nigerian counterparts to ensure a secure and accessible 5G framework for all citizens. Since last year's conference, there have been a few developments which I would like to cover. In April, the Department of State set up a new Bureau of Cyberspace and Digital Policy. This illustrates the elevated importance of cyber and digital issues in our foreign policy and in the area of increasing cooperation for allies and like-minded states. In August, the United States, along with our international partners, participated in UN negotiations for a new UN cybercrime treaty to draft a global instrument focused on improving the investigation and prosecution of cybercrime. We greatly appreciate the leadership of Mr. George Tiendezwa, who I believe I saw online today, who serves as vice chair of the responsible UN ad hoc committee. And just a few weeks ago, the United States indicted and sanctioned several individuals associated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps for conducting malicious cyber attacks, including ransomware activity. This action serves as a reminder to all the United States will continue to pursue malign actors within the cybercrime realm, no matter where they are. And last, but definitely not least, the United States welcomes the election of Doreen Bogdan Martin last week as Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union. And we thank the government of Nigeria for its support in that election. Thank you very much. Ms. Bogdan Martin has been an impassioned advocate for universal connectivity, and her tenure will serve the international community well. In closing, I want to say I cannot think of a better way to partner than through the American Business Council to discuss the state of cybersecurity in Nigeria. U.S. companies have unparalleled expertise in technology solutions to counter cyber threats, and I greatly appreciate the Council's leadership in organizing this event and highly recommend them as a resource. It is very exciting to see the variety of stakeholders and specialists present here for today's discussion. As President Biden said, with respect to cybersecurity, vigilance and urgency today can prevent or mitigate attacks tomorrow. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I look forward to the further discussion. Margaret?
Yeah, thank you so much, David. This becomes you, actually, but that's a conversation for another day. And please extend our greetings and apologies to the DCM and to the ambassador for not getting this early enough, because this would have been great. So quickly, we're moving to what private sector is doing in this area. And we're going to call on Dell. We're going to call on Mariuresh Thohari. And I hope I pronounced the name properly, and apologies if I did not, to share the perspective on what private sector is doing in this area. Over to you.
Thanks, Margaret. Can you hear me clearly?
Perfectly. Yeah, thank you.
And I will share my screen if you could confirm that it is visible to you and in turn everyone. My screen should be up now. Can you see it? Perfect. And can I just do a time check? I guess I've got 8 minutes. I'll try to finish before that, but is that okay?
Yes, I mean, if you could do 7.5, 7 minutes, that would be great.
No problem.
Thank you.
I'll try my best. I'll try my best. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to talk to you about what private sector is doing. Specifically, obviously, Dell and SecureWorks, and SecureWorks is part of the Dell Technologies umbrella, where we focus specifically on cybersecurity services and technology. But overall, I'll be talking a little bit about what the cybersecurity industry itself is doing in order to contribute to the development and growth of the cybersecurity ecosystem. My name is Mayuresh Kothari. I'm a global solution lead for SecureWorks. And obviously, I was listening into the panel earlier, and it was great conversation, especially about what are the steps that the government itself is taking. But before we get to that, here's something to start the thought process itself. So first and foremost, what exactly is a threat, right? So now what we understand as threat can be defined in various ways, but the one that generalizes things most is it's the combination of the intent to do harm with the capability to do it, and then the opportunity to do that harm. Now, in order to stop this threat from affecting us, and this is applicable to the physical world, the cyber world, you name it. But if we were to just look at it from a cyber threat perspective, in order to ensure that we are immune from this threat or we are not affected by this threat, there are a few things that we need to be doing. First and foremost, we need to understand that in order to ensure that the intent of a threat actor is thwarted, we need to understand what their targets are. So we need to identify those possible targets, right? And any organization, be it government, be it critical national infrastructure, be it financial organizations, it's their responsibility to identify what those possible targets are. What cybersecurity vendors can assist with is obviously helping identify and map those things a bit better. The second thing is, once the gaps or once the possible targets have been identified, it's important to close the gaps, right? So if we know that our, let's say my house or my apartment is vulnerable to something, I need to ensure that I put in strong locks. I need to ensure that my windows are barred or whatever, right? The same is applicable to cybersecurity. Being able to identify vulnerabilities, put in the right tools in place, have the right skills and training deployed. And then last but not the least is the establishment of process. Processes are important to anything and everything that we do. And it's the establishment of this process to start to have a plan, to have something written on paper in order to start executing on it, to identify the ability to test the skills of both people as well as the capabilities of the tools that are deployed, and then have that repeatable processes deployed in order to ensure that what we are doing is going in the right direction or not. That will ensure that the threat itself is thwarted as early as possible and cause as little damage as possible. Now, in order to do this, what are some of the expertises that the cybersecurity industry in the private sector is building or is wanting to build? You know, the ability to look at a lot of data and analyze it. To do malware analysis, be it in collaboration with different security vendors, be it trying to respond to threats that have been identified in organizations that were affected by these threat groups, or by research or through research itself to identify how a threat actor, to get into the mind of the threat actor and see what they could be doing. Lastly, the ability to be present in the dark web, where a lot of these sort of so-called shady businesses have established their sort of more very corporate-like capabilities, where they are doing outsourcing of the code itself to be deployed by someone, to be exploited by someone else, and to be ransomed by a fourth person. So all of this is what industry or cybersecurity vendors are bringing to the table. Now, these things obviously cannot be done in silos. These are not things that are done on their own, which is why it's important that when any organization is looking to increase the maturity of their cybersecurity program, they need to be able to answer some of these questions. Can we respond to threats? Do we have tools that will help us respond to threats? Are we prepared in order to respond if something bad does happen? What are the plans? Do we have capabilities? Are we rehearsed in this? So let's say we are prepared for a particular type of threat. Can we, if something changes in that threat, are we able to respond to it? And then finally, are we resilient? Can we do this in a repeatable manner? Can we do this continuously? What are the people, process, and technologies that are responsible for keeping us resilient? Right? Now, there are a lot of small micro points that can be identified in each of these questions, be it at a government level, be it at law enforcement level, be it at policy level, or be it at an individual organization or a person level. But in order to map it to cybersecurity industry's capabilities and how that would work, it would be to provide innovative tools and technology to work with organizations who are using and government entities that are using those tools and technologies, to prepare, to help define plans, to define frameworks. So for example, there is different frameworks that are being used globally as well as locally, and a lot of local regulations, laws, and frameworks are built on some of these global frameworks. Things like MITRE ATT&CK framework, things like SANS frameworks that have been developed, the ISO frameworks that have been developed, and there are n number of these frameworks that are built in collaboration by private sector as well as government partnerships. A very important aspect of this is also threat research and the ability to take that threat research and disseminate it. A lot of this effort is done by private sector, and in order to make it democratic, right, to make it available to everyone is what we should strive for. The rehearse and resilience part is more about the development of skills. We had a lot of conversation in the panel about some of these skill gaps and how these need to be filled. Obviously, getting into STEM at an early stage is important, but a lot of these things cannot just be learned by books or by courses, right? There has to be hands-on experience. So those kind of partnerships and the ability to sit behind and look at what professionals are doing is also very, very important. And then using that those lessons learned and applying them in real world is what matters. So it should be partnering rather than outsourcing. Organizations should not be looking at outsourcing everything because they're also outsourcing their risk. In turn, they should be looking at partnering. We also look at collaborations at law enforcement level, at CERT level. So any incident response practice at a global, national, law enforcement level or organizational level requires information sharing in order for it to be effective. And that is what the public-private partnerships or the private capabilities bring to the table. The last thing that I'd like to talk about is that circular model of industry contribution. So if technologies are used in silos, they will not be able to scale up to the capabilities that you would want them to deliver. If skills are kept internal, skills are not expanded, developed, there is no way these can be transferred and translated to the younger members of the team. So we cannot have senior members keep the skills to themselves and not translate it. The same applies to industry as well. So we need to look at training and outsourcing those trainings as well in order to spread that. Planning and execution through services to be able to create plans, be it for incident response, be it for cybersecurity frameworks. All of those are very, very important, and those are achieved through the industry itself. And then look at the outcomes. Take those outcomes, identify the learning, and then collaborate with all the different capabilities and capability providers, and then repeat the cycle in order to make it effective. So that's what the circular model of the industry and how it contributes to ensuring that the cybersecurity ecosystem remains, flourishing, remains effective when it comes to addressing the threats that we see in the globe today. The last thing that I'd like to leave before I close my session is a thought-provoking sort of quote that comes from our own security researcher, who's Jane Addams, who says that it's a myth that the threat actors of today are, laser focused, they are very smart, or they have the capability to do anything and everything and bring down infrastructure. No, they're not. They're not an eagle-eyed predator who are selecting specific areas to attack. They're usually as lazy as the next person. They're usually trying to use anything and everything that people before them have done in order to make their job easier. So we would equate them as vultures rather than eagles. So it's our job as practitioners of cybersecurity, as users of cybersecurity, and as protectors of our environments to ensure that we don't make their job easy. We don't leave the gaps. We don't let them see what our vulnerabilities are, because then they will attack us. So in order for that, we have to build this partnership and make sure that it's a combined success. I hope this was helpful. If there are any questions, you can always reach out to me, or you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can put this up in chat, and I'm happy to respond.
Thank you so much, Mayuresh. I appreciate the fact that you worked within our time limit. That's great. So right now we're going to go into the panel breakout session. So we have two panels. We have the panel on advocacy and awareness, and then we have the panel on the role of skilling and mentoring in promoting cybersecurity that will focus on upskilling, mentorship, and hubs. So the first panel, the one I just mentioned, is going to be moderated by Kasim Sodangi. He's the compliance, what they call Oga at the top for Smile Identity. But also I would actually leave him to do the other piece of the pie. I would not introduce the moderators, but he has a long working collaborative existence with the American Business Council, and extremely supportive. And he used to work with NIDA and was a coordinator of, again, I think at this point, I wish I should just introduce the moderators, otherwise we'll spend the whole day discussing who they are. And then the second panel, it will be moderated by Musa McKinsey. Again, Musa, apologies if I murdered that surname. And so we would, at this point, move the different stakeholders to the breakout panel. And I believe the host is going to be to two panels. And I believe the host is going to be moving everyone right now. If you have questions, if you have challenges, can you just send them to us on the chat, and we'll be happy to support the what you're doing. Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, good day and a warm welcome to today's breakout panel. My name is Mosam Kize, Policy Advisor and Vice Chair of Covington & Burling's Africa Practice. Covington & Burling provides legal and strategic policy and regulatory advice to clients doing business in Africa. I'd like to thank Maggie, the CEO of ABC, and her team for convening this conference, and in particular one that focuses on a topic that is gaining more traction globally and in our continent. So as we prepare to get the panel started, I'll just start by kind of setting the scene and reflecting on a few points that we know to be true. The first is that Africa is undoubtedly a continent on the rise. It is growing in population size, economically, and in its positioning on the global market. While the devastating impact of COVID-19 continues to be felt, particularly in economic growth terms, technology adoption, of course, increased significantly during this unprecedented period. With growing digitization, however, new risks and vulnerabilities arise that could undermine some of the progress that has been achieved as a result of investments in digital infrastructure, internet penetration, and of course, increased access. So chief among these are, of course, the rise in cybercrimes. And so, of course, the growth of cybercrimes by no means just an African problem. A 2021 Interpol report stated that cybercrimes affect all countries, but it is in fact the weak networks and security that makes countries in our continent particularly vulnerable. So it is my pleasure to introduce today's panelists who will share insights on the theme, advocacy and awareness. Over the next, I would say 30 minutes rather than 40, we will tap into the expertise and experiences of our panelists as we unpack subtopics such as the process of promoting the responsible use of cyberspace to drive Nigeria's digital economy, building trust and confidence in a safe and resilient environment, and how to drive an elevated level of awareness on cybersecurity through associations and civil society. And now to introduce our panelists, we are, of course, today joined by our first panelist. And Maggie, please let me know if any of the panelists I mentioned are not, in fact, on the line. The first panelist I have the pleasure of introducing is Dr. Bala Fakandu, who's the Deputy Director at the Office of the National Security, and then followed by Dr. Adesina Sudia, President of Nigeria's Computer Society and Professor of Computer Science and Information Security at the University of Agriculture in Oregon State, Nigeria. This is followed by Professor Ajay, who's a Professor of Legal, Social and Political Environment and Business Lead at the Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School. And then Mr. Abu Iqbal, who's the chairperson of the Committee of the Chief Information Security Officers at Nigeria's financial institutions. And last but not least, Mr. John, who's the Director of Corporate, External and Legal Affairs for MIA, Middle East and Africa, for emerging markets at Microsoft. You know, I think always a good place, of course, to start is of course, the policy and regulatory kind of environment. And this is where I'm thanking my new panelist from the Ministry of Education, just to kind of share some insights in terms of what are some of the trends that you're seeing as it relates to cybercrime trends in Nigeria.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much for having me in this group. At the ministry level, since the advent of COVID, where we have to move a lot of our teaching and learning to cyberspace, of course, there have been an increase of cyberbullying to children, and that has been a lot of concern to us. We have a standard procedure for national education security. However, we haven't done much on the cyber end because we didn't have so much large volume of people, of our children on the cyber ends. And so the issue of cyberbullying, the issue of identity theft, the issue of general security, insecurity within the cyberspace is a lot of concern to us. And we're working a lot with our partners, National Security Advisor's Office, NCC, etc., to see how do we mitigate and how do we manage our children on the cyberspace. And again, we also are thinking of how do we change our curriculum to incorporate cybersecurity as a core course. In a lot of these, we have an MOU with Cisco, we have an MOU with Oracle, so as just to align our curriculum to the cyberspace to take cybersecurity as serious as it is so that we can train a lot of Nigerians and to fill that gap. We are told that there is a need for about 3.5 million cybersecurity globally. We intend to play our own role in that space. I also intend to really closely follow the trend of security of our children and see how we can protect them from it. Like NCC is doing quite a lot in terms of coming up with regulations to telecom industry to see how we can navigate about identity theft and bullying on the cyberspace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Issa. And you know, I'm particularly interested in highlighting the fact that you're highlighting, you know, the need for collaboration, right? Given the fact that there's been this massive escalation, particularly with vulnerable sectors of the population, you mentioned children as an example. It kind of then wants me to bring in, you know, Professor Sodia, who I know is on the line with us, around, you know, we're finding that a lot of our citizens don't actually have an awareness of cybercrimes, what it all means, what the options are for them to kind of tap into. And so Prof. Sodia, who is of course the president of Nigeria's Computer Society, just, you know, focusing on the issue of creating awareness, may you please just share with us some of the ways in which your organization has helped with informing the citizenry of career paths in cybersecurity and how best to navigate them.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I want to also especially thank the organizer of this event for inviting me as the president of Nigerian Computer Society to share some of the things we do. Well, I want to respond to your question by saying that cybersecurity has become one of the key IT issues or concepts or area that the Nigerian Computer Society has been looking at for quite some time. And that is why over the years, we have actually put in place a number of programs to further educate our members, the generality of the public, on the cybersecurity threats and issues. Let me say a little about the Nigerian Computer Society. The Nigerian Computer Society is actually the umbrella body of all IT practitioners in Nigeria. And it's actually the foremost IT body in this country, having existed for over 40 years now. The society has been there when it was even difficult for organizations, individuals to accept the use of computers. So we have actually gone a long way in championing IT development in Nigeria. Back to your question. Yeah, Nigerian Computer Society, like I said earlier, we have a number of programs towards educating the citizens about cybersecurity threats and landscape. Well, let me also tell you about a study we conducted maybe in 2020 during COVID-19, and we discovered that among all IT professionals in Nigeria, just less than 30% of them also take into consideration the measures to guide the activities in the cyberspace. But well, even with that, we discovered that a number of the citizens within the country that have one thing or the other to do with digital systems, many of them don't even understand what we mean by cybersecurity. Many of them don't even understand why it is important for them to conduct their affairs in a secure way when they are communicating, when they are interacting, when they are conducting their activities and operations online. And of course, we saw this as a challenge, and that is why we also increase our activities in the area of conducting awareness so that more and more of the people that are actually working online, more and more of the people that are working with digital systems become fully aware of the implications of what is available, of the implications of the fact that if they don't conduct their affairs the way they should do, is going to really cause a number of havoc to them. So in Nigerian Computer Society, when we have a monthly magazine that is called the E-Voice, and in the monthly magazine, there is a section where we provide information to our members on current activities, current issues about cybersecurity. And it's not, we don't present to them national issues alone. We also let them know about what is going on in the area of cybersecurity all over the world. So it's a monthly magazine, and that is really working because it's actually providing adequate information for our members in the area of cybersecurity. Apart from that, Nigerian Computer Society, I think since about 4 years ago, we have also instituted annual cybersecurity stakeholders forum. We normally have the program around June every year in Abuja. And this is a program that we have put together to bring stakeholders together and discuss the challenges, present to them the current landscape and discuss the challenges in the area of cybersecurity. And we come together to also provide solutions. And I remember last year, the major issue we also discussed is the issue of awareness. Because as of today, more and more people are still falling victim of cyber attack. There are still so many cyber crimes that are going on. No matter how low they are, even if you are able to get some, if somebody is able to take away just a little, as 2,000 naira, 1,000 naira from you, you know how you are going to feel. So many people are still falling victim, and that is why we thought that we discussed that a lot. And one of the issues we also discussed at the stakeholders forum was the issue of cybersecurity, creating awareness for the citizens of this country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sadia. I'm so grateful to hear so many of the so grateful to hear about all of the programs that you are working on. And pardon me for cutting you short. I'm just mindful of the time and want to make sure that we get as much from the panelists that we have. You highlight quite a lot around the awareness, right? And for me, I find it quite encouraging that we are, Nigeria's taken, the computer society has taken quite seriously the importance of, exposing the citizenry to absolutely what's happening in the country, but also to global trends, etc. Which then brings me, and this is the point where I'd like to rope in John, of course, from Microsoft. Being a very global, a global company, right, with very deep kind of roots in Africa, having operated for many, many years, John, the reality is that, these cyber crimes take place on online platforms. And so I'm interested to hear around, how is Microsoft addressing issues relating to, for example, online threats, to vulnerable groups such as women and children. And if you could maybe share and reflect on, maybe 2 or 3 sort of, lessons learned about some of these strategies that have been deployed by Microsoft.
All right. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you, John.
Excellent. I think when you were introducing the panelists, I was just thinking what I needed to do to upgrade from this director title to a professor. I think I'm like the only non-professor on the team. So I'm going to try and work.
Makes 2 of us, John. Makes 2 of us. We've got some work to do, you and I.
But anyway, thank you so much, Musa, for having me on the panel, and thanks to the American Business Council and Margaret for the opportunity to be here. And I've been on it's a pity we had all the challenges that we had, but thankfully we're still able to have this meaningful conversation over the internet. I'm joining from Dubai, and I think the platforms that are available today are giving us the opportunity to be able to have this sort of meaningful engagement without national boundaries or space being in the way. But if just listening to everybody talk today, you can see that everybody's echoed the same opinion, that because of the move and the shift to the digital space, whether to work, to learn, to create new business lines, to deliver citizen services or whatever it may be, or whoever may be using it, there's also a proliferation of cybercrime and cyber threat, which is normal. It's like saying the rate of car accidents today, it's far greater than what it was in 1920, because there are more cars on the road, so to speak. So it's a matter of then coming up with the right policies, with the right practices to be able to prevent, disrupt, and mitigate cyber incidents across the world, across the platforms. And you're right, for a company like Microsoft, that you have over 1 billion people using either my products, my services, my devices in one shape, form, or other, my platform would naturally be a huge target for cyber criminals, so to speak, even though it's distributed across the ecosystem and the chain as it goes. And that's why people like us have the greatest incentives to invest first on our platform, the security of our platform, invest in partnerships with governments, invest in partnerships with academia, with law enforcement, and with our industry players to be able to come up with practices, solutions, code of practices as it might be, commitments, even in areas where the law hasn't caught up yet, for us to make cyberspace safer for everybody that wants to use it to be able to do whatever they want to achieve or whatever goals they want to achieve. You asked me, I think, directly about digital safety. You put it in the form of online harm, particularly to children and women and other vulnerable groups. And you're right, digital safety is something that is a whole ecosystem sort of focus, or has to drive it. It has to be collaboration across the ecosystem. I was looking at some statistics the other day. It was saying that 1 in 5 girls or 1 in 10 boys are going to get sexually molested, whether online or not, before they turn 18, as it were. And every 60 seconds, there is an online sexually exploitative image being traded online. And then if you look at how that about 1.8 billion images are uploaded onto the internet every day, how do you then find this sort of like needle in a haystack to be able to track this sort of exploitative images or grooming activities online that are targeted at children, targeted at women, and targeted at those that always or usually don't have a lot of protection, as it were. And that's something that's a focus for us as a company. There was this technology we developed in 2009. It's called photo DNA, for instance, particularly for children. It's a technology that helps to detect, to address, and to report sexually exploitative images of children online. And that was something that was developed in partnership with professors in Dartmouth University. And today, in partnership with some other non-NGOs, we're able to make that technology available to law enforcement for free, to academia for free, and to anybody that provides a service that targets children, to be able to track their services and make sure they mitigate against exploitation of children online. And that's a beautiful example of collaboration between academia, industry players like ourselves, and NGOs to be able to curtail this menace of online threats to children. And just last year, in 2020, we also developed, on top of the photo DNA technology, we developed another solution that's called Project Artemis. And this time it was developed with a bunch of academia and a bunch of non-NGOs as well, which is a service or a technology that is able to help detect grooming of children online for sexual exploitation. And that is a technology that will be quite useful for people that provide chat services, for instance, because that's on social media platforms, or even other chat services that provide other services to people online, for them to be able to use to mitigate the menace of grooming children for sexual exploitation. And that's something that is also made available freely today to any of such developers or any organization that has to be first screened by a third party that Microsoft has employed to make sure that they are a verified entity to be able to use that technology. Because you don't want to, like we say in Nigeria, you don't want to give the fish to the cat to be able for safekeeping. All right. So you don't want to give the tools to people that are going to use it for exploitation. So those are some of the kind of partnerships that we are driving, and advocacy that we are driving at the moment, especially for those vulnerable people or on the internet, particularly children and women.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John. Again, reflecting on the depth and breadth of the work that, kind of multinational companies are able to achieve on the continent in partnership with, whether it be the local, researchers, professors, etc. And again, all the best to you, John, for becoming a professor. Next time, I look forward to introducing you as professor. So
working on it, actually speaking.
And with that, I really would like to move over to somebody who's very deeply involved in the academic space, and that, of course, is Professor Ajay from the Lagos Business School. Prof, there's been a lot said about the extent to which academia has been involved. I've heard other people talking about how academia has been involved and the impact thereof. I'm really quite interested to hear your experience, right? What has your experience been as a professor in academia, particularly at the Lagos Business School? And how do you feel that the status of, for example, the regulations, the guidelines, and the general approach to cybersecurity, do you think it really is reflective? And can you really confirm that the views and suggestions made by academia are reflective in where government is at right now?
Thank you very much. Thanks to the organizers of this program for inviting me. And I want to say, John, you are a lawyer, so you are a learned person. So you may not be a professor, but I think you belong to the tribe. Well, having said that, I think the specific question you asked, as far as regulations are concerned, and how are they involved academics, or how useful they are. I think you heard the minister say very clearly that there has been engagement with academia, there has been engagement with industry at the policy level. I do know that
Sorry, Professor.
Sorry, sorry, I had a bit of I do know that even at the regulatory agencies, whether talking specifically now, whether it's CBN, SEC, and some of these other agencies, have also tried to ensure that they involve academics in development of policies and regulations. In terms of stakeholder engagement, there is always the involvement of academics in these engagements as well. I think the other role, which may probably be a bit understated, is the need for critical comments, research, that's basic research in terms of informing policy. I think I would say the academia in Nigeria, I think, needs to really bulk up a bit more in this regard, perhaps so as to really be at the fore in terms of in terms of research, in terms of that's research in terms of data, research also in terms of critical commentary. I think probably there's need to bulk up a bit, but those are other areas in which you find that academia is involved. I think it's also worthwhile mentioning also that academia is involved, particularly in the area of education. We do have more than 20 universities that run courses in cybersecurity to provide critical manpower. However, this cyberspace is native to the younger people, and I think much of the awareness needs to focus on, the university students and those lower down the line. And I think probably that is also an area where we ought to see a lot more I think concerted and organized activity. I think that would be my stab at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think, you know, again, just confirming what has been said before, highlighting the fact that certainly a lot has been done and a lot has been achieved so far. More can certainly be done to leverage, you know, kind of collaboration across the private and public sectors. Mr. Issa, I might ask a similar kind of question, but perhaps maybe just kind of tweak it a little bit to say, you know, what partnerships are you looking at across, you know, in your ministry to, one, elevate the partnerships that you know, to elevate the work that you've already achieved, but also kind of bringing in what has already been said around the need to, and Prof Ajay mentioned it. Yes, a lot has been done in terms of, you know, roping in the academia, but a lot more can be done. So what lies ahead from you, certainly from a programmatic standpoint, but also from a partnership standpoint for the next sort of year or two?
Thank you very much for this question and for inviting me to participate once more. We know there's a lot of difficulty in changing our curriculum. We are very slow at doing many of these things. And we build partnership with international organizations. For instance, we have an MOU, like I said earlier, with Oracle. And we're comparing our syllabuses, our curriculum with that of Oracle curriculum. And based on that, we're using that as a basis to train lecturers, students to align with that. And the same way we're looking at partnership with Cisco. Cisco has a Cisco security system. And we're having partnership with our ministry. We deal more with policy. So we're having partnership with a lot of other agencies, like I mentioned, NCC, NIDA, everybody. We're coming up with the digital literacy policies to guide operations on the cyber space. It's a new threat and it's a new trend. And with all trying to move education through digital literacy and learning, we know it's something we have to do. And there'll be a lot of emerging trends that we need to develop system on how to guide and how to punish, because for as long as we don't even punish people that are caught on it, it should not deter others from doing it. So we need to come up with the right legislation in terms of being able to act as a deterrent for other people to use. Therefore, we are building on a lot of collaboration with all other agencies, security, service providers, academia, etc., so that we can come up with a robust and a very flexible system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Issa. And with that, I really would just like to wrap up the session. I'm just mindful that a few of our panelists actually have to drop off for other commitments, but really just wanted to thank all of the panelists, Dr. Issa, who joined us, and very grateful to you for having joined us, Mr. Issa, as well as Prof. Ajay, who is from the Lagos Business School, along with Prof. Sodia, who's the president of Nigeria's Computer Society, and of course, our dear friend from Microsoft, John Aldopolo, who joined us and shared some of his perspectives from Microsoft. And so really just wanted to thank you all for joining our panel this afternoon. It really has been my great pleasure to moderate the session, and I hope that we're all feeling energized, but also, you know, taking forward the baton, right, in terms of what more we can do. And so with that, I would just like to hand over back to Maggie and the team, and this concludes our panel on advocacy and awareness. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Musa. Yeah, thank you for the great job. It's a good thing you rounded off, or you just ended this. With all the interesting things going on, I also hear that one of your panelists is somewhere in the frill, and I'm just trying to figure out where he is, even though yes, you've ended. Mr. Abu, are you anywhere where you can speak? Can we see you in any way? At least even to recognize the fact that he was here, but we didn't get to see him. So apparently, I think he's caught in the middle of the it's caught in the middle of all the complexities. But thank you very much again once more, Musa, for this opportunity. We just want to confirm that other members have, the other panel has also rounded off so that we get our partner Commercio to do the closing conversation. So we just hang in and wait for others. I would send a note to the other panel to really begin to round off so that we get to the end of this. Thank you, everyone.
Two quick things. One, continuous partnership with both private sector, government, civil society. For instance, this year, as DG mentioned, we partnered with NIDA to provide and hold workshops that included working closely with the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Nigerian police, really covering sort of the safety, online safety, as well as removal of harmful content. The second piece is ensuring that we continue to raise the bar and opening this up to everyone. So for instance, this year, in 2021 at Google, we committed to invest over $10 billion in global cybersecurity innovation and partnerships with different peers, government organizations, as well as civil society, and really opening up tools such as the Zero Trust DDoS protection that is run by Jigsaw, one of our institutions at Alphabet, as well as working closely with software supply chain security solutions, because these are really critical. So we need to continuously invest heavily to solve for those challenges that come over the horizon. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for your intervention. And this is noted, and then very useful intervention on just the scale and sort of investment that are required to be able to build this. And we thank you for your partnership with the government to also drive some of these, ideas through channels in Nigeria. Lastly, in a minute, Mr. Eboa Aburume, from a position sitting in Stanbic, a leading financial institution, where do we go from here in a minute?
All right, thank you. So for me, it's all about how we address the issues around the shortage of skills and talents, and this begin to a people's issue. So we normally say traditionally that you have people, processes, technology. So you have the process, you have the technology to address it, but you lack the people. Then at the end of the day, we are still very much exposed. So I think it's how do we address this issue around our skilled talents leaving the shores of Nigeria. If we can put a lead on that or have an approach in which we manage that risk, then I think we'll be in a better position. Thank you.
Thank you, gents. And Aburume, to your point, I guess this highlights the partnership between Google, as Charles has mentioned, and the DG of NIDA, Mr. Inua, on those kind of partnerships to build out this capacity. We expect that these programs will continue to scale, will deepen the skills. Stanbic will continue to hire and invest in these skills also, together with all the partners on this group. On behalf of the American Business Council, I want to thank everyone for your contributions to this panel. What is clear and concise from the conversations is that partnerships, building out trust systems, sharing information remain at the core for driving and improving cybersecurity, in Nigeria and in the region. And then again, the very salient point of regional cooperation being, key to be able to achieve some of the ideals and some of the goals that we set out to combat cybercrimes. So I want to thank the Director General of NIDA for being part of this session and his intervention. I want to thank also Dion for your insights, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Egbao, Charles, for your very useful insights, and Mr. Fakandu. This session has been quite enlightening, and on behalf of the American Business Council, I say thank you, and we will reach you with our thanks. And then if we need any other information and exchanging of contacts and sort of documents, we'll see to that so that we can continue this long after this panel is finished. Thank you for being part of this session, and enjoy the rest of the session and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, and it's bye for now.